Welcome back to Learning to Code with Multi-Theft Auto. In this episode, we're going to continue where we left off with our login GUI, and we're going to make it actually work. All right, so jumping back into our code here, we have our login button, and what we want to do is we want to attach an event handler to the login button when the button is clicked. So we want to add event handler. On client GUI click is going to be the event that we're looking for, and we're going to attach that to our login button. And we're going to say that we do not want any events that are up or down on the element tree. We don't want any propagated events. We want only if you specifically click this button. This is very important because if you click, say, on the background, it will trigger an on-client GUI click event for this button at some point because it will run down the tree and forward that click event to all of the children of this event. And so if we're listening to propagated events like that, we'll be, trying to log the user in when they've just kind of clicked on the background. And, oh, that's interesting. Our window moves. Let's just real quick make our window not move. There's a GUI set movable and GUI set sizable. Those two methods will stop our, if I could spell them right, I think it might be move and sizable. You know what, let's just take a look at the wiki. Let's go to client functions, and we will dive into GUI set movable. GUI window set movable. GUI window set movable. Restart our player's resource and back to green. Okay, we're good. Now that's not movable. Let's go ahead and implement our login button. So let's just dive over to the wiki first, and we're going to scroll up to the top here, and we will search for on client GUI click. And we'll see that we get button state absolute X and absolute Y as parameters to our closure. For this, we're only going to care about button and state. And we're going to say if the button is not left, meaning your left mouse click button, or the state is not up, meaning if the button is still being held down, we're going to go ahead and just return, and we're not going to continue on our event. Basically, this is going to stop. This is going to stop people from being able to right-click this login button, and it's also going to be able to stop them from holding down the button and it continuously firing our login attempts. We only want to fire it one time. So now that we've handled that, what we want to do is we want to get the actual data that's inside of our edits here, and we want to assign them to variables so that we can validate that they're a valid username and password, and then we want to fire those off to our server to actually handle logging in. So first of all, let's jump back over to the wiki, and we're going to come down to client functions, and we are going to look for get text. GUI get text. So we can call this on any GUI element, and we can grab the text that's inside of it. So what we're going to do is GUI get text, username input, and then we're going to grab that. And then let's just let's just output those to the chat box, and we'll restart players, and let's see if this works. This is interesting. So that's working, but what is going on here? That is very strange that it was like deleting the text there. I don't know what was happening. Never seen that before. In any case, it stopped happening, so we'll move on. So we're getting our username and password. If we look at attempting to log in with test user and password, that is working. One thing that I don't really like is we're actually showing the password here. We actually do have something in MTA where we can set an input to be masked. GUI edit set masked. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to make use of that function on our password input so that it's not visible if someone else is in the room or something. That's just going to take our password input and the status being true. So yes, it is masked. We come back and restart our players resource. You'll see that now it has a mask applied to it so that it's not outputting. But if we go ahead and type hit login, we'll see that we actually do get the value if we look for it programmatically. So now that we have this username and password, what we want to do is we want to validate the data passed to us is actually is valid, just on terms of client side. So we just want to make sure that what they provided us is actually a string, and it's good. And then we'll move on. So then we will be triggering our server event, which is going to be we'll go auth login attempt. We'll pass the local player as the source of the event, and then we're going to pass the username and the password up. So first, let's make these functions actually exist. So we're going to jump up to the top, and for now, we're just going to say that if it's greater than 1 character, meaning username has to be at least 2 characters, then it's a valid username. We'll also make sure that the username actually is a string. And that ought to do it. We'll just do the exact same thing for password for now. We're not going to get too complicated into the validation rules here. So now that we've validated that both of those are good, we need to actually let the user know if there was a problem. So what we're gonna do is we are going to create a new input valid variable, and we're gonna set that to true, and then we're just gonna go input valid is false in both of these cases, so that we return and don't continue onto the server if the input isn't valid. And then we're going to create a new label that is that's going to be next to our username and password fields, and is going to kind of be like error text to let the user know that that we have a problem. Why is this saying that it's not used? Put valid. It is used. It's used right there. All right, we're just gonna ignore that. So let's let's create the labels outside up here so that we always have them. And what we're going to do is we're going to just put them basically kind of right beside where that username text is. Now this is going to take a little bit of kind of playing with to get right. But we will say, instead of 15, let's try 50. Same height as the previous. And then we're just going to say that this one is width minus 60 to account for our 50 offset here, and a height of 20. And then we're not going to put any text in it to begin with, because we'll populate that text down below. And if we jump over to our wiki, let's look through our GUI functions, and we're looking for something that is going to let us change the color. Now, I believe we do that with GUI set property, and I believe one of the properties that it is accepting is color. So if we jump over to CE-GUI, there is a whole bunch of properties that we can apply here. The one that we're looking for right now is normal text color. So if we try that, normal text color, now obviously we are not looking for a button, we're looking for a label. Where is label? Static text, maybe? Well, let's give that a try. Give set. There's a GUI set property. User error label. And then we're just going to go with some red, and let's see if that worked. It did not. Also, 50 was not enough, so let's try 100, and that will make this 110. And 100 was too much, so let's split the difference a little bit. We'll go 80, which will give this 90, and that looks okay. And what we're actually going to do is gonna go username is valid. And you know what? Let's just go back to the wiki and let's look for set color. That's okay. Let's look specifically in client function. Set color. UI label set color. Oh, there is actually a specific thing. So element red, green, blue. So let's just change this to GUI set color and go 500, and we'll restart players. That looks pretty good. Let's try our usual 100, 100. Ah, that looks good. That looks good. I'm almost thinking that I want to put that text to the right side, though. It might look better that way instead of just right there. Let's try width minus 100. 50. 150 was too much. See, this is a lot of what what working with GUIs is just kind of playing around until you get the right stuff, you know, until you get exactly what you're looking for. You just kind of have to feel it out and figure out exactly what you want, and then you know, roll with that. So that looks good. I like that. The username is invalid. Kind of, you know, it's soft, but it's there. It lets the user know. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna leave that error label there, and we are going to jump back over to the wiki and GUI set visible is what we're gonna do for this guy, and error label false. So if we make that guy invisible, boom, it's not there. So if we come in, we don't see that label. So now what we can kind of do is we can kind of copy that for our password label. So let's go password, and we'll just copy that. Password is invalid. And then we'll jump down here and we will just go GUI set visible. True. That's actually username. So if I just click login, I get both of those, but we need to put the password on the right height level. So let's just take a look at that. Password is on a height y-axis of 90. So if we just do that right there, and then we click login, boom. All right, that looks pretty good. So now that we've got that, don't really like that error text for what we're doing. What that actually is validating is that you actually have specified a username. So I almost want that to say username is required. So let's do that instead. Also, I don't think we need those periods there. It's not really a sentence. And then if we click login, username is required, password's required. Now we just have to shift those over again. Dang it. Let's go with minus 130. 130. Those there. Password is slightly less long than username as a word. So we'll just go 25 on that and click login, and now they look pretty good, so yeah, so if you don't specify that, now that I do that, now when I click login, I want to get rid of those, and then what we're going to do is so we'll do that. Boom, test. I get rid of that. Oops. Instead of putting those at the bottom, I'm going to put them right there so that we don't keep both if someone only fixes one of the issues. That makes more sense. So let's go ahead, restart players, and click login, fill in that, Okay, good. So now we have that. Now we're triggering our server event. We need to actually make a server event to trigger. Let's jump over here and we're going to look at our authentication code. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this to be add event handler instead of add command handler. And then we are going to create a new event that allows remote execution from the client. And then we're going to stick that sucker in right there. We're going to attach this to root. And instead of player command, we're only going to get username and password. We don't need to do this validation anymore because the client has done that. And then, yeah, now this should theoretically just work. Instead of outputting a chat box here, though, what we need to do is we need to let the client know to get rid of their GUI that they've opened and you know, show success. So what we're going to do is we're going to trigger a client event. Login menu close. We're going to trigger it for the source, and source will be the source of this event. And we don't need to pass anything further. But talking about source, we have this player variable that we're using, but now it does not exist. We need to change all of these guys to say source instead of player because we're no longer accepting a player. A player argument here. Instead, we're going to use the global variable that's created for us inside of this event handler, which is the source of the event. So we set the source of the event on the client when we triggered it to be the local player, so that will propagate up for us. So let's go ahead and restart players. And let's go ahead and fire that guy off. Fix that, and nothing happened. Let's see here. Players with a bad argument at add event handler. Expected event priority at argument 5. Got none. Let's go back to authentication and let's look at what the heck that thing is talking about. Argument 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We no longer need false here, or this false, because those were from our add command handler. We don't need to specify anything like that. We don't care about setting a priority, and we do want propagation. So the default to that is true. So we're just going to leave it as the default because we're attaching to root. So we want to fetch the events of the children as they propagate up to root. So in this case, when we trigger the event against the client, the player, we want that to bubble up and trigger this event handler here. So let's restart players one more time. Hit test, and no such account can be found with that username or password. If I go test user and password and click it, an unknown error occurred while attempting to authenticate. Interesting. Let's take a look at what we have going on here. Player, source, missed one. And one of you guys is probably screaming at the screen right now because you saw that before I did. Let's go ahead and try that again. Still an unknown error. What is going on here? Account, get account username. We have a hash. We got the account data is valid. The source did not carry through our function. That's what's going on. So what we're going to do for this is we're actually going to create the player variable that didn't exist previously, and we're just going to set that to source. And that way we can use that inside of this closure. So let me just break down what's happening here. In this closure, we have a different source variable. The source variable in here is not the source variable that is out here in this scope, because in Lua, in a different function scope, you can have different variables. And so the way that MTA is providing us with that global source variable, it only works in here. Now, if we take that source variable and assign it to something else like player, it should propagate through and be available to us. So let's give that a try. So let's just jump back over. We'll restart players. Clean that up a little bit, and let's go test user password. And so the error that we're getting now is you're already logged in, which is expected because I logged in so that I could restart that. So let's just go ahead and reconnect. And you successfully logged in. So our login UI is working. Now we just need to actually create this event in the client side. And we can get rid of this now because we're no longer developing that UI. And so we will go ahead and now that we've got this guy, what we want to do is we want to destroy element window. Now, this isn't going to work just immediately because window is set as a local variable inside of this closure, which means it's only available there. So what we need to do is we need to bubble that up and instead instantiate that variable up at the top of our script so that it's available throughout the entire script, so that down here we can destroy the element. Now, we don't need to worry about destroying all of the elements. We can just destroy the one that we care about here, window, and it will take care of getting rid of all of these others that we've created down below. And it'll do that because they're all children, and destroying element will filter down the tree. So we don't have to do that manually. So let's restart players. And we will reconnect. And we will log in, and now our GUI is gone. But our cursor's still here, and we haven't actually spawned. So now what we need to do is we need to actually handle spawning. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to come down here, and once we've destroyed our element, we are going to get rid of our cursor, and we are going to allow binds again from the user. And then we're going to jump over to the server, and we are going to spawn player. Going to spawn the player at 0, 0, 10 like we were before, and we are going to set camera target to be the player, just like we did in our previous script. And if we restart players and then reconnect, and then we come in and we test user password, let's see if all of this comes together, and it does. We spawned in. Perfect. Okay, so that is our login system working. Now, obviously, you could take this further, and you could build the register and the forgot password interfaces, which I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description on the link to the Git repository on how I went ahead and did that, so that you can take a look if you're interested. But we're going to move on from this, and in the next episode, we're going to make our players spawn exactly where they left off when they previously logged in, and then we're going to go ahead and implement a basic payday system. So that's going to be for this one, guys. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button down below. keep up to date with future videos, hit that subscribe button. If you're not caught up, check out the last video over there to my right. And that's it. I'm gonna go play some Grand Theft Auto. I will see you in the next one.